You are listening to WCAT Radio, your station for quality Catholic programming. Your selected program will begin right after a word from our sponsor, GroupM7.com, a web design and hosting company. Log on to GroupM7.com today and let them know that WCAT Radio sent you.
You know, my finest childhood memories was the Saturday morning movies. For about 4 bits each, my brother and I could split a Coke and a big box of popcorn and watch movies about Tarzan, Jane, and their Amazon River adventures. Well, maybe that's where Jeff Bezos took his name. His Amazon.com is now the largest online retailer in the world. I'm Michael Mahfood with Group M7, the oldest and largest website design firm in East Texas. And here's my point, and as usual, it's a good one. If your website is modern and up-to-date, mobile and search engine friendly, it matters not whether you sell a product or provide information about your goods and services, your sales justifiably will increase just like theirs. The world uses the internet. We can improve your website and your email. Look at our giant portfolio at GroupM7.com. Since 1995, there's only one web and there's only one group, and it's us. It's Group M7.
You're listening to WCAT Radio, your home for authentic Catholic programming.
Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Cynthia Toolin-Wilson, and I'm here tonight with Belinda Mooney, who wrote a book, My Therapeutic Lifestyle Changes workbook, with Gianna, her daughter, I believe. How are you today, Belinda?
I'm doing great, Cynthia. I'm so glad to be here with you. Feel very blessed.
Well, I'm very happy that you are here with me. I think this will be a very interesting interview. It's actually the first time I've interviewed anyone on a workbook.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. Is Gianna your daughter?
Gianna is my daughter. She's 18 years old and an author herself, getting ready to publish a work of fiction. Yes, and she helped me with this book, helped me with all kind of formatting and all kind of stuff. So
that's wonderful. Yeah. Okay, would you like to start us with a prayer, and then we'll start talking about the book?
Okay. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Dear
Amen.
Lord, please help this time together for Cynthia and I, and for those who will listen to the recording in the future, to be very fruitful and very helpful. Help me to explain everything clearly so that I can help people to make a new beginning and have the ordered, calm, and peaceful lifestyle that you want for us. Give us your blessing. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Okay.
So tell me why you decided to write this book.
Okay, well, that's a great question because I was a social worker for 10 years, postmaster, and then I came out of my field for 25 years to homeschool my own children, 3 of whom have neurological issues. And so when I came back into my field after these 25 years of homeschooling, me and my students, well, we use a textbook for my basic counseling skills class. And in the textbook, the authors are describing the therapeutic lifestyle changes and how people can actually recover from even depression without meds if they work all the different areas of the TLCs. And they, obviously they would do this with their doctor's approval, and et cetera, but it's just very encouraging. It's very encouraging, especially I came out of a situation of trauma with domestic violence, and so the minute I heard this and how good the TLCs were, how good exercise is for your brain, I thought, well, that's going to help me recover. So I went right into doing it myself. And then I started thinking about my students and how I could help them, because in that first 10-year period, I had just done everything a person could possibly do in a career and of service to other people, and I pretty much burned myself out. It was difficult for me after that to feel refreshed. I always felt tired. Like, it's been difficult. And I don't want my students to have that happen to them. And so the idea started forming that I could take this and use this and build a workbook around it. I started with a template, and then I fleshed out chapters before that. And I'll explain it more in just a bit. But this way, they could start living with their TLCs now, and then when they got into the field, and there's just a lot of high stress in human services because you're dealing with people who have a lot of problems, which there's just a lot more problems since COVID, but there's a lot of problems for mental health, addiction, recovery of all kinds. So my aim was to help them to learn from my mistakes and to have a tool that would help them not to become burned out. So it's kind of my thing that if I write, I believe that my writing is a gift. So my higher power is God, and I write for God, and I write for the help of other people. So when I started a long time ago, for those first 10 years, I wrote a book about teenagers who had dual disorders, that's chemical dependency and substance abuse. Then when I came into into homeschool, I wrote 2 workbooks that accompanied Ann Carroll's Christ the King, Lord of History and Christ in the Americas textbooks for history, because I realized that a lot of homeschoolers were having difficulty with the essay questions. Their children didn't like them. They were having trouble developing something else, and I can do it. So I did it. So I wrote those 2 books, and so each of those time periods of my life, I was serving people with the books I was writing. So here, I'm a teacher now again in a classroom, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, I can do this. I can actually write something that they can use. So we started at the beginning 3 years ago with the first class that I was teaching with just what I call the template. It's like what has become chapter 4 in the workbook, and it's where you have room to write. It's the current status of what you're doing in a particular area, like let's say relationships or spiritual enhancement or exercise. Then you go into the projected goals, and that is what you will do, not what you would like to do, what you dream about doing. That all goes in your current status. And then when you've got it real specific, I will exercise on Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 4 to 5 p.m., then you're going to go down to the next section and you're going to put in strengths and resources as to how to meet that goal. And in the workbook, I've got a real comprehensive list, because most people, and I have seen this over and over, we're very good at seeing strengths in other people, but we're not real great at seeing them in ourselves. And so what I tell people is that your strengths are your gifts from God. And so you don't have to be ashamed of them. You don't have to be proud. You can just admit them, and that's humility. So anyway, we do we did this template, and I kept talking to my students about how to fill it in, how to do it. What I was noticing is that when they were in class, they understood it. When they got back home to their computer or their desk, if they were going to handwrite it, they couldn't remember how to do it. And so then they would hand it in to me, and I'd look through everything, and we're doing these like a workshop, like I'm consulting with them, like I'm a therapist helping them, but I'm their teacher, and I'm trying to help them put it in, right? So they come back to me, and I see they don't understand. So I think, well, why don't I write out the directions before they have to fill it in, and then they'll actually have something. So several semesters ago, I started with the written form, and I kept adding to it and developing it. Oh, well, they don't understand. They still aren't getting this. I've got to put that in. It's been a real beautiful, gradual, exciting process to get it all done. And without my students, I could have never done it, because I did it for them. And then I'm getting finished with it, and I'm going, oh, my goodness, this could just help everybody in recovery, everybody who's recovering from trauma or addictions, codependency, mental illness of any kind. because depression and anxiety are covered under the mental health sections, the exercise, the relationships. I just began to see that here I was, again, being asked to serve a larger population or a larger group of people than what I originally thought I was going to serve, right? And so I just felt so humbled, blessed, privileged, because I love teaching and I love writing. So all my students are very precious to me. The beginning of the book, I've dedicated my book to all my students and to, I homeschooled all my children too. So I said a big thank you to all my students in many classes who used the original template and field tested the workbook. And thank you to my colleagues and my friends who used and reviewed the workbook and gave me input, to my daughter Gianna, who helped me to keep writing, and my son Justin, who did the lion's share of the work in our home so I could write. All of those gave me courage to finish. And I really did dedicate my book to all my students and my children, all of whom I've had the privilege to teach. So, yeah, that's kind of my way of saying thanks. Yeah, so they've all been a blessing in my life, and they're just so thrilled. My students are so thrilled with the workbook coming out, and so we'll see how it happens. But I just wanted to find a way to help them prevent their burnout, and I began to see that other people could use it. I began to try to really create a structured way for them to organize a lifestyle plan to keep all their life areas in balance and reduce stress. And stress management is so key right now to mental health that it is critical. It is critical. And it's really, when you manage your stress, what you're doing is building a calm lifestyle. And I wanted them, it was something that my daughter Gianna and I came to as we continued in our trauma therapy, that we wanted to create a calm lifestyle. And for people who have been through a lot of chaos and trauma, it's very, very soothing to be in that order and that peace and that balance and that calmness that you always wished you had. So in a way, I'm trying to really help people create that life that they really have always wanted, but it's not been able to be possible. And I think that when you look at the support groups that are out there and available for people, the treatment, all the stuff that's available for them if they want it, and even if they can get help and a family member cannot, at least they're well. At least they are creating a calm lifestyle for themselves, and they're moving forward with their life. So those are a few of the reasons why I developed the workbook.
It seems, when I look through it, it seems that this is something that would be very useful. When we often think of people who have, some kind of, like I saw you have screen addiction in here, or, social media, whatever. There is always that type of problem, and this book would help them, but it seems to me that at this particular moment in time with COVID, everybody's under stress.
Exactly.
You can't avoid it. It's like I live in Vermont, and I see basically no one except my husband and the cat. People that I see on Zoom. So it's like I want, it doesn't overly bother me because I have a lot going on with my crafts and my reading and my writing, that sort of thing. But I think of all the people whose only thing in life is watching TV or playing computer games. At some point they're going to go crazy just doing that until this pandemic. So the stressors that we always have, it seems to me, have been magnified tremendously by this COVID situation.
Absolutely. And you know what? It's a real great thing that you brought that up, because while I was developing this to use with them, we ended up having to come home last March. In the middle of our semester, we were in spring break, and that whole group could not continue to practice their basic counseling skills, where we get in a group of 3 and we practice the skills. But they were able to keep working on their TLCs. And my 2 children and I actually have 7 children altogether, but my other children are grown. So just John and Justin live with me. But John and Justin and I began to try to develop a routine in our life so that we didn't go crazy. We ended up putting in as many of the TLCs as we could. We had a time for exercise. We had a time for a movie. We had a time for our work. We had a time for personal relationships, whether that was on a Zoom call, a Google Hangout, a text. Like, what we did was we said, we're not going to let this, even though we can't go out of the house a lot, we're not going to let this stop us from living an ordered life. Because I had heard a long time ago, there was a priest who was put in prison, and with other people, I think it was in Spain, and I read an article about this, how he told everybody, okay, listen, the way we're going to survive this confinement is we're going to set up a schedule where we do our prayers, we do our meals, we do our exercise, we tidy up, you see what I'm saying? We do more prayers. Like, they had a set schedule. So John and Justin and I made a set schedule, and with my students, I'm trying to help them get to the point. One of my students, I almost put it in the workbook, but I couldn't get it all together at the last minute. She agreed to let me do it, sweet Courtney. She had a calendar from Sunday to Saturday with everything she did in her life on that calendar, and all her TLCs were plugged in. It was so beautiful. It's magnificent. And I just looked at that and went, wow, she really got it. Now, she has flexibility. If she can't do something, okay, she's not going to just, go crazy about that, but she's got a rhythm for her life. And that rhythm of life creates calmness. It creates order. It creates balance. And we know, okay, I don't have to worry about doing that right now. I've already got it scheduled for 2 hours from now. Right now, I can just focus on what I'm supposed to do now. I can actually be with my children playing a game or watching a movie or talking about really important things, because I know that at 4:30 I'm going to do my exercise, or whatever it is that might be bothering you. Oh, am I going to get it in? Or so many people, because they don't have that rhythm of life, because they don't have that structure, they just end up letting wind blow them from one direction to another. And when you're coming out of chaos, you just feel like your mind is spinning to begin with. It's very, very hard to concentrate and focus. And so creating your TLCs, whether it's, like I said, spiritual enhancement, relationships, these are the TLCs that I've got. I'll just go ahead and list them for everybody so that they can kind of understand what this is. Spiritual enhancement, prayer, meditation, study and reflection. Relationships, that's family, social, support group, romantic. Then service, that's things like service to your acts. I'm calling them intentional acts of kindness, because I believe that kindness, since it's the right up there with patience, love is patient and kind. It's the second attribute of love. So I think kindness should be intentional. What intentional act of kindness can I do? So I was working with a student today, just to give you a sweet and brief example, and she said that she loves to do certain things, and she gives money to homeless. I said, how about if you put a bag of trail mix or a can of mixed nuts? How about if you keep food in your car, and every time you see him, you do that? She goes, oh, I can totally do that today. So we put that into her TLCs today, and now she has an intentional way to be kind every time she sees a homeless person, because she's got the food there, it's ready. So that's maybe service, but also service to the culture. Maybe people want to serve at a crisis pregnancy center. Maybe they want to do a Habitat for Humanity. Maybe they would like to serve in their church, their temple, whatever. They have a way to intentionally say, this is how I want to serve. I'm not serving right now, but I've always wanted to. This is how I can do it. And then cultural identity. How tied into their culture are they, and what would they like to do to learn more about their culture? Exercise, and I go into physical exercise, stretch training. There's a whole beautiful Christian stretch training program called Pietra Fitness that hardly anybody knows about. It's at Pietra, Pietra, fitness.com. They are beautiful. Do all the stretch training. It's Christian meditation. It's beautiful. Then there's also outdoor. Can you jog? Can you run? Dr. John Rady wrote a book, and it's going to sound funny, but it's called Go Wild, and it's about getting outdoors to do your exercise. Go out into the wild. But he wanted a catchy title. So he talked about how exercise is so beneficial, not just for your body, but for your brain, that every doctor should prescribe it for every patient. I mean, so once I knew how good swimming was for my brain, I wanted to swim. So we set goals and exercise. Then sleep. Most of us are sleep deprived, and it is like an epidemic. I just did a lot of research in order to write the book. I found one researcher, a medical doctor, who says that between 10:30 and 12 are the most productive time for our brain when we're sleeping. So imagine if we could just get ourselves to bed at 10:30 and actually sleep from 10:30 to 12 when we have the most productive time for healing. Then even if we woke up at 6:30 or 7, no big deal. We've gotten what we needed. If we needed 8 to 9 hours, depending on if you're a teenager or you're elderly or you're somewhere in the middle of all that, you're going to get what you need. And I talk about creating the atmosphere in order to sleep and getting a routine before you go to sleep. Some people do a nightly examine where they examine their day, the good things, the things they didn't feel like they lived up to their values, and they do their conscious examination, in other words. And so then they prepare. They say thank you for everything the day brought them and live that attitude of gratitude, especially if they're in 12-step recovery. That's really vital, an attitude of gratitude. And then they go to sleep. And then we talk about, in another section, we talk about nutrition. And having dealt with eating disorder specialists, I know that the diet culture is breeding eating disorders. So I'm going to say that again. The diet culture is not a good thing. There's a book called Intuitive Eating that most of the nutritionists who deal with eating disorders are recommending because it is more holistically based with food and not restriction. So I advocate people getting a nutritionist with an eating disorder background if they are very underweight or very overweight, to make sure that if they have an eating disorder, they're not doing anything that will feed that disorder. So anyway, we go through that. We go through hydration in nutrition. Then we talk about health, the physical health, the number of people who don't make or keep doctor's appointments, women not doing gynecological and mammograms. I'm telling you, I'm just talking about the homeschool community. I knew many people who just didn't take care of themselves. So what I'm trying to do is get people to take care of themselves in all these different areas. So I'm advocating that they set appointments, that they do what they're supposed to in all those areas. And if they need a therapist, I'm very happy to recommend therapy, because it actually, especially if you can get a counselor who understands what it is that you're dealing with, whether that's addictions or trauma, eating disorder, or whatever. There are people who specialize in all those areas. It's actually been proven through neuroscience that your brain lights up with your counselors and you are healing. It's so healing to be in therapy. So I just came back in. I'm like, oh, yes, we're being proven that what we do works. So I can give that because our brain has what's called neuroplasticity, and that is its ability to change and grow. So nobody has to ever believe the lie that they cannot change. I don't care what they've been through. I don't care where they've been. It's like we know that God forgives no matter what they've done. Well, I don't care where they've been or what they've been through. They can heal because their brain has that property of neuroplasticity. And this is not me making it up. This is scientists in neuroscience saying, here it is. Here's hope for even the person that didn't think they could ever recover. Okay, so if you're not recovering, we recommend that not only do you do all these TLCs, but you go and get a real good workup of what's happening in your life, and you see if there's something else there. So is it a coexisting disorder? Do you have neurological problems? Is there something else that's making you relapse or go back to whatever it was that you used for coping? So all that is advocated, the physical, mental, and then we look at work, setting goals and priorities, but also getting balance with our work, because a lot of people work too much. So we look at our work and finances. Then we look at brain work. Since I deal with a lot of students, it's very important for them to set a goal about how they're going to meet all those demands for papers that are due or assignments or workshop-type assignments like this workbook. Like they still have to be doing something every week, so they've got to parcel out their time. And then there's another type of brain work, like if you're not in school but you just want to work your brain. Dr. Edward Hollowell, who wrote books on attention deficit, he himself has it, and he's developed a term called neurobics. And neurobics are exercises for the brain. So that's like crossword puzzles, word finds, Sudoku. So my mom, who's been doing this, oh my gosh, I don't know how many years now. She's now 78, but she's going to have a good brain for a long time because she's doing all this stuff. And Dr. Vincent Fortinays, who works with Alzheimer patients, he says that if you keep your brain working, if you do these type of neurobic exercises or, 10 minutes of math a day or working on...
Hello? Hello?
Who were going to get Alzheimer's, you will postpone it by up to 10 years. So most people could die before they ever got it because they kept doing what they were supposed to do to work their brain and swimming. Like, I'm going to come back to swimming because another doctor said that when doctors open up the brain of a person who died and they look in their brain, if they were a swimmer, they can tell right off. There's so much healthy tissue. They can tell right off they were a swimmer. And so I thought, okay, then I want to be a swimmer. I want my brain to look like that. I want it to recover and to be beautiful again, right? So then we go into creativity, and creativity can mean a lot of things. So not everybody is good at fine art. Not everybody can play an instrument. But maybe some people do mechanics. Maybe other people love to organize and order their home. Maybe they love painting and interior decorating. Like, there's so many things you can do, and we talk about that. We talk about self-discipline, another area, whether that's with your screen time, with alcohol or other drugs, with smoking, with other types of addictions, because pornography is huge, especially it's increased now with COVID, and smoking is one have as a separate category to itself, but video games, sometimes I see a lot of young adults, and especially young adult males, who may not be doing anything else with their free time but playing video games. And that can become an addiction because that's all you're doing. So let me just describe this. Like, to give you a specific example, in the first 3 chapters, I talk about these things in the first chapter. Then in the second chapter, I talk about how to do a current status, a projected goals, and a strength. Then in the third chapter, I give you lived examples of how people have done this. So here's a first try, here's a little bit better, and here's the best, most specific, most helpful one that you can get. And that's the process that I've gone through with every student who's handed in any paper to me. That first try where, I'd like to exercise more. Well, that's not going to get you anywhere. 2, I like to exercise 3 times a week. 2, I will exercise Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 3 to 4. So we're bringing it, and I'm offering a lot of concrete examples. So my students this semester just finished. A lot of them are still in the process, but I have had so many who right off the bat got it. They would put Chapter 3 up on one side and Chapter 4 up on the other side of their screen, and they would look at what the best examples were in Chapter 3 of these areas, and they'd tweak them to their situation, and they'd write them in. To where I just had, when I did my consulting time with them, I just had to say, okay, but you still have too many words over here in strengths. They may think that all of this that they're saying is a strength, but strengths are 1 or 2 words like self-discipline, desire. You see what I'm saying? Those are strengths. So you've got to get it to where what you think about things are in your current status, what you will do are in your projected goals, and what you have as strengths, those 1 or 2 words that define your gifts that God's given you, that's under strengths. And resources are things like a supportive family or a gym close by or a new phone with these apps or something like that. But I've got all the lists so that people don't have to try to wonder or think it up because, like I said, it's hard and people want to be humble. They don't want to admit sometimes that they have strengths, so it's hard for them to do that. So I'll give you an example. One of my students he turned in his TLCs for the first time. He had his exercise and his nutrition perfect. Like those 2 were perfect. He was doing them to a T. There was nothing I could add. But his sleep was just totally out of whack. And I looked at the exercise and I realized it was 7 to 8 at night, or I think it might have even been later. And I told him, I said, well, look, I think what's happening is you're putting your exercise at a time that's so late because exercise really gives you energy. Okay, so a doctor once told me that when you exercise for 4 hours afterward, you feel like a hit to your immune system. But then after that, it's like you gave your body a booster shot. That's why exercise is so good for you because it's a natural immune system booster. Okay, so whenever this guy is exercising late at night, well, he can't get to sleep because he's got all this energy. It's good energy. It's the way you're supposed to function. So I said, what if you just back it down and put your exercise earlier in the afternoon? Keep everything. Use the strength, the total self-discipline, focus, plan in place, current success. Those are all strengths, right, that he's already got for his nutrition and his exercise. Put all that in, but at a lower time, and then let's see what happens. Wow, that little adjustment, that little fine-tune just totally got all 3 of those TLCs in order, and everything was in balance, and he was able to sleep wonderfully. And this took shifting something, right? He was working with his strengths on 2 areas that he was already totally going with, and then he just moved it a little bit, and then he got the 3rd one in. And then I was pushing. If you could picture me, I'm pushing with my hand like I'm pushing him. Okay, you got all these things done. Now what are you going to do about these other areas? Man, you don't have enough social. You don't have enough. What do we want to do about that? So we keep talking about that. So I have another student that she wanted to do meditation, but she couldn't fit it in. She needed to do more exercise, not just for weight management, but just for her overall physical health and her brain functioning because she had bipolar. She couldn't fit it in. So I said, okay, tell me your schedule. So in the morning, she would get up, have a cup of coffee, and read a book. She loves fiction books, and she loves to read. She was supposed to be exercising her dog, but she couldn't feel like she could fit it in. So I said, well, what about this? How about you consider taking your meditation, your morning meditation, with your coffee. You've already got your coffee going. You know you're going to get up and have a cup of coffee. Why don't you read your daily meditation book? She's in one of the 12-step programs. She wanted to read scripture because she's Christian. Why don't you take your daily meditation and scripture and read it while you drink your coffee? Then, in the afternoon, when you walk the dog, because you know you're going to want to read your book, get the audio version, put that on your head while you walk the dog. So now she's got all 4 of those TLCs. You know, she's got exercise, she's got her care of her pet, she's got her meditation, you know, and her relaxation. So she's got them all in now, but it just looks a little different, but it's manageable. And because she put it together with something she was already doing, she knows that she can do it, and she has. She did do it. So these are the kind of things that we do where we're looking at their schedule, we're looking at what they want to do and get done, and then we're trying to help them find a way that they can really take control of their life. Get all the TLCs in, because the more therapeutic lifestyle changes you put in, the better you're going to feel. So I was just working with a student today on coping mechanism. So self-soothing. What does that look like? Some people it's hot baths. Other people it's essential oils. Other people it might be tactile, where you're going to have a soft stuffed animal or a soft fabric that you can just feel. Other people it might be a stress ball. I personally don't like those a lot. I might do it for exercise for my arm and my carpal tunnel, but I won't do it for relaxation. So it's different people and how they react to different things. Not everybody's going to be able to use one thing. So that's why I put in all kind of different examples from my students, from myself, from the people I know, and we talk about how to get that stress management in all these different areas so that we can get a new beginning. It can be like, okay, I can handle this. My brain can heal. My body can get better. A lot of us have just really seriously neglected our body. And I can't tell you how important it is to just start now, just begin again. And so I go through those first 3 chapters where I'm explaining everything and how to do it. Then I'm giving them all of chapter 4, where under spiritual enhancement, it has study and reflection, then current status, projected goals, strengths. Then it's got prayer and meditation, current status, projected goals, strengths, you know. So you're going through each section, working through each section. One of my students just said, she said, Professor Mooney, this was very difficult because I really had to look at what I was doing, but what I was just not doing, how I was neglecting all these areas of self-care. And I can see that my recovery would be so much better if I could just do all of those things. So in chapter 4, that's what she's doing. She's working on those things, and now she's in her second draft that I'm going to review today, looking at how she incorporated the first input that I gave her, you know, when I looked at it the first time. So I just kind of tell everybody, we go kind of through drafts with this. If you want to write it on sheets of paper on the side and mark it up and go through a different draft and then put your clean copy in your book, great. If you want to write in pencil gently and then erase some sections if you don't get it, or if you want to revise it, that's great too. But whatever you do, you're going to have to go through each section and really painstakingly look at what you're doing or not doing and what you really want to do to get your life where you want it in those areas. And so then chapter 5 is being accountable, implementing your TLCs with accountability. That is telling your therapist, telling your sponsor, telling your support group, telling your husband or wife or partner or whatever, telling your people, anybody who loves you, what you want to do, and have them help you stay accountable using all the technology that you have. People are so technologically savvy that I actually put that as a strength. Because one of my students just blew me away. One day he came and he goes, Professor, I don't have to worry about my screen time anymore. I'll put an app on there. I'm tracking it, and when it shuts me down when it's yeah. Okay, I'm putting that in the next draft of the book. It's just so much benefit by setting a reminder, putting it in your calendar. Hey, Google, remind me to do this. Like, you can do whatever type of technology you have. You can use every bit of it to help you set the goals, but then keep the goals. And I ask them to actually put how they're going to use it into their projected goals. So if they say, I'm going to call my mom once a week on Saturday at 5, I have set a reminder in my phone. You see? So that's the full goal. I'm going to call my mom once a week at 5 on Saturday, and I've set a reminder in my goal, in my, phone, and on my calendar or whatever. So then that way it's so specific, and they've got so many reminders that then Saturday's going to come around, and after a while, I don't know that they're going to need the reminder. They can keep it, they can let it go. But what we're doing, you see, again, if you could just kind of think with me, it's that soothing rhythm where I know what's coming, I know when I'm going to be doing things, and I know that it's going to work out. And then what happens if all these good plans, you have a crisis, or for my students, they change semesters, or you change a job, you have a death in your family. What happens if something huge and major happens to you and you start falling off of a lot of the TLCs? Because right now, you're just in acute crisis mode, and you're just handling it the best you can to get through it. Okay. So chapter 6 is just what I say, which is really what St. Francis de Sales said. If you read his works, he says, begin again. So if we have a problem or a struggle in an area, we find that we're falling back on old coping mechanisms. Oh, I gave up that, and now I'm taking that back again because I'm in high stress, and it wasn't like it came upon me. So we're trying, all of us are trying to put our life in order. But something comes upon us from outside that we didn't ask for, and we have to deal with it. Well, then we'll go back to our TLCs. When we see that we're falling back to old coping mechanisms, we'll go back to our TLCs and say, which ones are suffering right now, okay? Look, instead of beating myself up, and just that does not help anybody. What helps is just simply say, whoops, I've gone back to my old coping mechanism. I don't need to do that. I'm going forward today. I'm just going to begin again with my TLCs. Maybe because my semester changed, or my job changed, or my location to do certain things. Maybe the gym closed down, and now all of a sudden you don't know where to go because that was the closest thing, and everything is very far away. Well, I'm going to take stock of my situation, and I'm going to reformulate some of these TLCs, and I'm going to then begin again. So see how that's much more loving and kind. That's the way God deals with us. He doesn't beat us up. He says, hey, B, that's not exactly what you're supposed to be doing right now. We can start again. We can do this right. Come on, let me help you. And you start again, and you go forward. So beginning again doesn't have to be just something that's nice and it's a dream. It can be an everyday thing. If I fail in this TLC today, I'm going to really try tomorrow. And I have a little checklist that I put up in my bathroom to where every time I go to my bathroom, whether I'm taking a shower, I'm just going to the bathroom, whatever I'm doing, I'm in there at least so many times a day, right? I'm looking at my checklist. What have I not done? Oh, my gosh, I haven't gotten my exercise in yet. I better do it now. Or the only thing that I can do that's exercise is pH or fitness if it's past 6 o'clock. Because everything else gives me so much energy that I cannot sleep. I'm like Colton. So I know that if I haven't exercised, then I'm falling back on the stretch training with pH or fitness, and I'm leaving it for today. And then tomorrow I'm saying, look, you're going to get yourself out there as soon as you can. Usually I try to go right after lunch if I can, because it gives me so much energy that I need the time to I need the time to then be able to go to sleep for 10:30. So those are kind of things that we work on. And when I was putting all this together and developing the book, I needed to have a website to be able to have people to go to if they wanted to buy the book and see what it was about and have a little bit more description about me and what I'm doing than what they get on Amazon, because I'm self-publishing this. I'm not going with a regular publisher like I did for my other books. And so I was trying to think about what I would want to do, and I came up with TLC Wellness Institute. So TLC for Therapeutic Lifestyle Changes, TLC Wellness Institute. So I did an email, tlcwellnessinstitute@gmail.com, and I did a website, tlcwellnessinstitute.com. And so I thought to myself, oh my goodness, it feels like I'm creating a new business, which is what I had all those years ago when I was working, those 10 years before I started homeschooling. And then I thought I could really help people like I help my students, not just with the book, but if they were able to buy the book, try their best to fill it out, and then just have an hour with me. Just have an hour. So I'm willing to consult for 15 minutes where we look at what they need to do and answer some questions, and then they can set up a time where we can, after they fill it out, we can actually go through it, and I can make recommendations. No, this goes here. You know what? These two need to be combined. I mean, I was just doing it today. I spent about 45 minutes with my student who had already given, well, and actually this was her first draft. I spent 45 minutes with her, and we've got the whole plan developed, and she knows she can do it, totally knows she can do it, because everything that we did was what she really wanted to do. And part of being a counselor and a social worker and addiction counselor and everything for me is listening deeply and understanding what people are really saying. And part of my Clifton Strengths in developing, it's, you know, I don't know if you've done the Clifton Strengths, but I recommend that to everybody because it shows you what your core strengths are. So mine are communication and connectedness and developer, woo, which goes along with being connected to people and loving people, and then belief, because I have a strong faith, okay? So those are mine, and that developer is what makes me a good teacher. It's what makes me, what Matthew Kelly says, want to bring out the best version of people, right? And so that's what I'm working on. And so now I feel like God is leading me to develop this new business so that I can actually help people beyond the workbook to not get too frustrated if they don't understand all of what they're doing. They can get a consultation session with me. So I just feel like I'm going to be able to help and serve a lot of people for a long, long time. You know, so I'm hoping to develop a TLC workbook for Catholics, for teens. You know, I'm hoping to expand it to where I have specific examples that would deal with that group of people, if that makes sense.
You know, you should consider something for the elderly.
Yes, I am considering that. That's the fourth area, but I just don't know how fast I can do all the things that I want to do because I still have a project that I'm doing with Ann Carroll on the workbooks for the Christ the King, Lord of History, and Christ in the Americas. So I'm doing another project as a supplement. So I will be writing for a long time right now, but as soon as I can get that out and done, then I'm going to come back to the TLCs and start branching out into specialty workbooks for those groups of people. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm 70, and I am amazed. At 71, I have a lot of energy. I work every day with no trouble, and I look at people who are starting to slow down, and their lives are changing in a negative way. It's not. I think it's because work was their only identity. Right. But it would help if I would help a lot of them if there was something that they could go to that would balance their life and give structure to it. Even they hit the really senior years.
Well, I think that this workbook, even just the way it is, would help them. I mean, this is a good beginning. So even if it's not like super tailored to a certain group of people. Anybody can use it. So if you're elderly, you can put in more relationship goals. If you're Catholic, you can put more of your Catholic religion in the spiritual aspect. If you're youth, you can do more with using your self-discipline to limit screen time and everything. Like, anybody can use it, even just the way it is. That's why I'm just so happy to get it out, because that way everybody can start using it. Then if I develop it even beyond that, then they can look forward in the future, but at least they're started. Because, see, my goal with what you're talking about, my goal is to get people still working to the point where they have their TLCs so firmly in place that when they retire, they've got a full life.
Yes.
They already doing. They have a rhythm to their life because they're already serving. So what they can do when they make that transition is just expand areas. Expand their exercise. If they want to now join a tennis league because they never got to do that, they can add that to their exercise. If they now want to be a part of a bridge club because they never got to do that, they can add that. If they want to be in more service in their church or in their community, they always wanted to go help build houses, but for Pete's sake, they were working all week long. They were buying groceries and doing their house chores on Saturday. They couldn't go to Habitat for Humanity. Now they can. Like, all you have to do is look at it as if, all right, when my life transitions to a new thing, then that just means that I have an opportunity to add some of these TLCs and continue to expand. Okay, so I have a dream. I want to learn Spanish someday. Right now, it's not happening. But if I can actually get to a point where I've got the rhythm of those TLCs, I'm writing at a certain time every day, I'm teaching at another time every day, I'm taking care of my home at another time, guess what? I might be able to portion out that half an hour for doing Spanish and another half an hour for learning piano. I can do this when I get everything real stabilized. You know, and just coming out for 3.5 years now out of a really difficult situation, I'm building a whole new life. So for me, it's going to take a little more time, but I'm okay with that. But I also know that one day I will do all those things because I will have my life so in order with God and with my family that I will be able to put those into place, right? So I'm looking forward, whenever I do retire, to doing more writing and more service. I'm just only going to do more of what I've already been doing. It's not going to stop. So that's what I would say to anybody who's listening who is older. Make sure, whoever you are, even if you're not elderly right now, make sure that you're not isolated. And don't just use text not to isolate yourself, because there are ways of getting together outside and socially distancing, like if you have to do Zoom, whatever you have to do to not isolate, that's better. And whatever you have to do to provide a rhythm for yourself, even in your home, that's good too. So that's what I would recommend for people who are not sure exactly how to get everything the way they want it. Just make a start. I think that what I've created can help you, but if it doesn't, or you don't understand anything, I'm just as far away as the email on that thing or the telephone that I put on there. So you can get help, and if you have a therapist, if you have a sponsor, you can work through this with them the same way you work through the steps. So it's all doable, and it can, for people who are in recovery, these TLCs can be part of their overall relapse prevention plan, because it's got a lot of good stuff in all areas of their life. So, and for those of us who just want to have health and wellness, we can have a fuller life because we're not pigeonholed into one or two things. So we've got to kind of push ourselves to do more, and to try to get those goals. So sometimes a person will start in a goal area. They've not been exercising at all. They can't just start, doing what they want to do with the end result today. But for the next 3 weeks, they can do a half hour of walking, and they can then add in the 4 through 6 weeks period of stress training with something like Page Pitches. They can do these things, and then they can, in their goal area, they can say, I will do this for 3 weeks. This is going to be a graduated goal for me. I will do this for the next 3 weeks. Then I will add this week 4 to 6. I've got this all on my calendar with reminders. You see? Mm-hmm. This is how they do it. This is how it can be done.
Yeah, I like it. I think, I've looked at many self-help books, not in the sense of wanting to use them, but, they are fairly popular in the culture. And so if I'm in Barnes & Noble or something, I'll take a look at them. And this, to me, seems more balanced. Mm-hmm. It's doable, Mm-hmm. And so I think that's such a strong move in the right direction. We all do. We all have a goal. You fall away from it. You get discouraged. It's like, I wasn't meant to do that, And this sort of like, you can do it in the step process, or you can reassess yourself and go back. I like that. I think it's a much more realistic approach. And,
right.
Also the fact that you've got it broken down by these different areas.
Right.
As opposed to like when you look at a self-help book and it's like, what are your goals? That's it, man. You come up with 10 goals and then you work on them, as opposed to having this kind of these suggestions. So I think it's very successful, and I think it's going to help a lot of people.
Thank you, Cynthia. And that's the thing. Like if somebody says, well, set a goal, but you've never been taught how to set a goal, how do you do it? So my thing is, anything I write, I want it to be very, very practical. Because if I'm being told to do something, I want an example. I want to know how to get it done. I don't want to feel like I'm a failure before I ever begin, because I don't know what to do. So for me, my big learning area is technology. Because when I was in my field before, the computers just weren't as big. We didn't use all the technology. And then I was in homeschool. So now I'm learning how to do everything on computer. I'm having to ask people. I had to ask somebody to help me develop a website. I had to ask somebody else to help me get a Google number. I had to ask somebody, but you know what? That's building my team. And everybody can, we talk about it in the programs of recovery, that there's a tool belt. We're building a tool belt. I talk about it also with my counseling students. You're building a tool belt of counseling skills. But in recovery, you're building a tool belt of slogans, steps, understanding how you can balance your life. So if you're building a tool belt, then you're building all those things in to where if one thing's not working right now, another can come into play. And instead of putting yourself down because it's not working, you can go back and say, you know what, maybe I started out with maybe I didn't break that goal down enough. I started out with too big a goal, and it was too much. So let me go back and say, okay, for 1 week I'm just going to do this. Then for the next week I'm going to do this. And take it slow and easy, because what you're trying to do is build success, not have another thing to feel like you failed at, because most people have way too many of that stuff in their life. So, I just hope that everybody will find it a practical way to actually start putting down what they need to do. And the more specific, and I keep harping on this all through every time I talk about goals, the more specific you can be about that goal, down to the hour you're going to do it. Oh, man, that's just ridiculous. Right. It feels like it's ridiculous. But when you get there and you've got it in your schedule, like Courtney in her calendar, you know when it's coming, and there's no stress to it. You just do the next right thing. There's a saying in the programs, do the next right thing. And there it is. It's right in front of you, black and white. You decided it. You and God, your higher power, were in control. You did it, and there it is. And if you decide you don't like the way that is, you need to do what? You need to do meditation outside while you're walking, then you just change it and say, instead of doing my meditation in a chair by my back door where I can look outside, I'm going to walk outside and talk to God, or meditate on the beauty of nature, or whatever, or I'll read my reading from a meditation book and then I'll go walking. Because the editor that I was using to make this book, when I put some of these things on meditation, she goes, well, you don't read books for meditation. And I'm like, well, that's because she's not in a 12-step recovery group, because we do it all the time. You know, we always read books for meditation. And in the Catholic world, we do that too. We'll read, even St. Teresa of Avila recommended reading books for meditation. And so sometimes the only way she could get through time of meditation with God was to have read something first, whether it was from the scriptures or a saint book, Life of a Saint, or something else. She would read something really uplifting and challenging to her spiritually, and then she would think about that. Okay, what is God telling me about that? So meditation right now is not just what the Buddhist monks and other people are telling us. We have a whole huge Christian meditation, like the books that Brother Lawrence, the book that Brother Lawrence wrote a long time ago. He's Carmelite, and he practiced of the presence of God, right? And this is a way of seeing yourself in relationship to God, you know. So there's just so much. And in the back, the other thing I wanted to tell you before I forget is that in the back of the book, after all these chapters, I have got, and it was painstaking. I'm telling you, I thought I was going to go crazy at this point in time when I had finished everything else, and I was having to look up books, the titles, the publishers, the date of publication. You try to find them, you can't find them. But having said all that, I've got the list of strengths. I've got a bibliography with extra readings. So whenever I tell you that you can do this kind of thing, I've got it in the back of the book, and you've got some extra things. So the lady, I'll just give you an example, the doctor that did the sleep study that showed that between 10:30 and 12 were the best times. Her book, Tired But Wired, is underneath the sleep section. So if I'm talking to you about it, I've got all these sections with a ton of books that you can go to help you get more in-depth in an area. So if you believe that your life would be more balanced tomorrow if you just started sleeping better, all right, then let's tackle sleep first. Let's look at what you can do immediately to get yourself to bed on time. And if you're exercising or you're eating too late or whatever, like, we're going to push that back. We're going to get the sleep in. And then you can read more books and get more ideas on the sleep. But at least right now, you're starting with something. Then you can go, okay, what's the next area? If I just put that in order, my life would be a lot more balanced, a lot less stressful. This would be a real big stress management tool for me. Okay? Then you do that one. And you've got resources if you want to, if you want to access them here. So these are the things. And again, I'm here. And hopefully God will keep me here a long time. I'll be able to help a lot of people. If people need me, they can contact me through the website, www.tlcwellnessinstitute.com. And that's got my contact information.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you for giving me this interview. It's been a very interesting one, and I think it will be productive for many people and might even be productive for me. You've got me kind of interested.
Yes, awesome. Well, hey, you know where I am. You actually have my personal cell phone number, so you can contact me anytime, Cynthia, and I'll help you put them together. Again, maybe you don't want to use all of them. Maybe you'll use 4 or 5 sections, but those 4 or 5 that you want to put in right now, you can start with those.
Yeah.
Yep.
This might do that. Well,
okay.
So I thank you for the interview. I think it's a very good one. I think it will hopefully get the word out about your book so that more people can become involved with this kind of process.
Okay, awesome.
Okay. Would you like to close us in a prayer?
Okay. Dear Lord, help this workbook to create the calm, ordered, and balanced lifestyle that you want to bless each person who's listening with. Help me in whatever capacity you want me to help them. even beyond just the workbook itself. I ask you to bless everyone who's listening and to give them happiness and joy. And I thank you for the privilege of being able to do this service for all these people that this is going to help. To your glory, in the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen. Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you very much, and you have a good night.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hello, God's beloved. I'm Annabelle Mosley, author, professor of theology, and host of Then Sings My Soul and Destination Sainthood on WCAT Radio. I invite you to listen in and find inspiration along this sacred journey we're traveling together to make our lives a masterpiece and, with God's grace, become saints. Join me, Annabelle Mosley, for Then Sings My Soul and Destination Sainthood on WCAT Radio. God bless you. Remember, you're never alone. God is always with you.
Thank you for listening to a production of WCAT Radio. Please join us in our mission of evangelization. And don't forget, love lifts up when knowledge takes flight.